Somewhere along the way of purchasing an aquatic creature for your fish tank, you may have heard that if that aquatic creature comes in a breather bag, it's not a good idea to acclimate those creatures by floating the breather bag in your fish tank. Today, I'm going to explain why that is. To understand why it's not a good idea to float a breather bag in an aquarium, we first have to understand why it's perfectly okay to do that exact same task with a regular plastic bag. A normal plastic bag is a completely closed off system, meaning nothing is going to get in and nothing is going to get out. So take a real good look as to how this setup is constructed. There's air in the top and water in the bottom, and that is incredibly important because the presence of air inside of this bag allows for the exchange of oxygen between the air and the water, giving your aquatic buddies the ability to breathe without running out of oxygen. A breather bag, by comparison, doesn't really work that way. Instead, it's made of a specialized material that allows the exchange of oxygen to happen simply by the bag being exposed to direct atmospheric air, meaning you don't have to put air in the bag, it just has to be in open air. That means there is no limit to the amount of oxygen that can be exchanged to the water in the bag. Because the breather bag can exchange oxygen with the air in the surrounding atmosphere, it's not necessary to put air in the bag itself. That makes the whole setup much more compact. However, that also means that the bag sits below the water line when you float it, and this is where the problem is. The bag can only exchange oxygen with air in the atmosphere. If you put it in the fish tank, it's going to sit below the water line where there is no access to atmospheric air, meaning you can in fact suffocate the creatures inside the bag by floating them for too long. In stark contrast, we have the regular plastic bag, which relies on the amount of air that is inside the bag, but because there is air inside the bag, we don't have to worry about no longer having access to any air in the first place. Although the water in the regular plastic bag is not getting oxygen from the air in the atmosphere, it is getting oxygen from the air inside the bag. Now, chances are, if you're going to your local pet store and you buy some sort of aquatic creature, they're just going to give it to you in a regular plastic bag because it's less expensive per bag and the air is free, versus a breather bag, which per bag is more expensive. On top of this, the amount of air that they can put inside of a regular plastic bag is usually more than enough for the amount of time required for you to get from your local pet store back to your house and acclimate them in your fish tank. Whereas a breather bag is typically used in a situation where you're shipping an aquatic creature across the country. Now, when you do this, an aquatic creature can be in the mail for upwards of 3 to 4 days on the high end. So the ability to grab oxygen from the surrounding atmosphere and utilize that to exchange the oxygen with the water in the bag is incredibly important. On top of this, whenever you ship something, size, space, and weight is at an all-time premium. So the fact that you can get away without putting a bunch of air in the bag during transit when you ship something means it can ultimately cost less for the person shipping the item to get it from point A to point B. There's also one last good benefit of using a breather bag. Because there is no air in the breather bag, you don't get the same kind of situation when it's being jostled about like a regular bag would. So imagine these bags are in transit and they're getting shaken around by the truck, the conveyor belts, the boxes are in, etc. Any creature inside of a regular bag is going to be thrashed around pretty bad. Whereas the breather bag doesn't have all that air for water to splash around in. It's going to be a more comfortable ride for the creatures during transit from point A to point B. So there you have it. two different bags using two different methodologies to exchange oxygen, and why one is okay to float and why the other one is probably not such a good idea.